Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers, FantasyGuru.com. I just realized something here. For those of you that don't know, and why would you know, or why would you even care? There's a new setup here at my house. I got a new computer. So the microphone that you see here on the screen used to not be on the microphone, but for some reason I don't have the same control of the microphone on the new computer. That's one of the casualties. So you're probably going to see the microphone from time to time here on the show, maybe every day. Secondly, I'm efforting as we speak here to get the show plan posted here. Let's see if I got it. Did I get it? No, that's not it. All right, let's remove that. Got to find it here because you know how these go. You get the show. I mean, you get the new computer and everything is supposed to be in the exact same spot. It's never in the same spot, right? You think, oh yeah, it's located right. No, it's not located there. So I'm efforting to find the show plan here. We'll see if I'm able to do that. If I'm not able to do that, we'll just have to talk about what we're planning on talking about today. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. You can see this show every day, Monday through Friday on Sirius X. Try that again. Monday through Friday on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Fantasy Sports Daily is also on Facebook at facebook.com/Sirius. I'm having a hard time today. Let's back this up for a second. You might wonder why I keep saying Sirius XM. I'm not supposed to be on Sunday nights, but with the way things have gone at Sirius recently, there's been some weather issues for hosts and power and internet and that kind of thing. So the bottom line is I've hosted 3 of 5 weeks on Sunday nights. You might have caught it last night, me and James Coe. So I'm used to saying Sirius XM over and over again. So I apologize for that. Let me see if I can rectify that situation now and say what I should have said to start the show. I am Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for being with me today. This show is Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. You can watch this show live and ask questions on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. You can watch the show live and ask questions on Facebook at facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. You can always type in the Elite. Go to the website, type Elite Plus at the top of the page there. Click on that, find our show there, and type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your local podcast network. That'll actually show up there as well. So you should be able to find us in a lot of spots. Okay, as I do this, I'm realizing that I've got one choice here. And my main choice here is to either A, have the plan up on the screen as always, or B, just wing it without doing it. And considering how poorly I spoke here to start, I'm getting really close to thinking it might just be time to wing it. So let's try one last thing here and see if I can get this to work. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get it to work. So here's what we're going to do. There will be no show plan on the page. We're just going to have to follow it along. So just rock and roll with me. I'll get this fixed for tomorrow. Again, I apologize. This is just what happens when you get a new computer. I thought I had this set. I didn't have it set. At least we got the show on. At least you can hear me. And at least we got things going in the right direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to go game by game as we do all the time. Just, picture having the little screen right here like we normally do. But we'll have the same, hopefully good content as we go forward here. All right, let's get into this action before I completely derail this entire show. Let's talk about game by game. Let's first start off with the New York Jets at the Minnesota Vikings. This one, the Jets lost 17-23 to the Vikings. The game played in Europe. I don't know about you, but I love getting up at 6 in the morning to watch NFL football games in the dark. Anyway, they played in Europe. Bottom line is that the Vikings moved to 5-0 with the victory. Jets fell to 2-3. Sam Darnold played poorly, and this is a concern with Sam Darnold because he's been so good the first 4 weeks. And he's been the star. He's been the belle of the ball the first 4 weeks, right? Just getting it done week after week. Yesterday, 14 for 31, 179 yards and a touchdown. Really poor performance. And, you can't end up getting locked into a player, which I know a lot of people have done. You get locked into a player because they're so successful. They're so consistent. And you think to yourself, well, who is this player really? And you kind of forget that, well, Sam Darnold's been around for a while, and a lot of people were making jokes. Oh, he saw ghosts and everything like that. He didn't see ghosts yesterday. He just had some bad decisions, and that happens. Is he a superstar quarterback? No, he's not. Was that a difficult matchup yesterday? Absolutely difficult matchup yesterday. So there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, little regression, a little bit of the matchup. Maybe it's going across the seas, all that kind of stuff. Sam Darnold, I hope none of you are planning on him being a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way because he just doesn't profile as that. Good and effective, but not a top 10 quarterback. On the other side of things, Aaron Rodgers played poorly. He needed 54 passes to get 2 touchdowns. He didn't even throw for 250 yards. He had 3 interceptions. And while he played poorly, it is obvious that his receiving core is just, they don't see the field the way he does. And it's, highlighted by Garrett Wilson, who had, 13 for 100 and a touchdown. It's a strong fantasy effort, terrific fantasy effort. It took 22 targets. 22 targets to get to 100 yards. Rodgers is back, throwing back shoulder passes and stuff, and it's like Garrett Wilson has never figured out. Garrett Wilson has no idea what a back shoulder pass is. He doesn't. He and Rodgers don't see the field the same way. When you complete 13 of 22 passes to your alpha receiver, there's a problem. I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers a pass here, given that he's going to the Hall of Fame for doing just that, getting the ball to his number 1 wide receiver. At the end of the day, Wilson produced, and that's what matters in the fantasy space. But we're not out of the woods yet with this one, because obviously he's not going to have 22 targets, the highest in football this year, one more than Cooper Kupp, I think it was. We're not going to have many games like that the rest of the way for Garrett Wilson. So be cautious with Garrett Wilson. All right, let's move on to the next game. Carolina and Chicago. Chicago dismantled Carolina 36-10. In this game, a couple of players to highlight on the Panthers side, though pretty much everything went wrong for the Panthers, really, except for one guy didn't go wrong. And the one guy that didn't go wrong was Chubba Hubbard. And, he caught 4 passes. Now, it was for -2 yards, which is horrendous. But in a PPR setup, 4 catches, 4 points, right? So it's another reason why full-on PPR, maybe everything should be half a point PPR. He got 3.8 points for catching passes. He had -2 yards. Anyway, he went 13 for 97 with the touchdown on the ground. And so another day, 90-plus yards from scrimmage. He touched the ball 17 times. He got in the end zone. It was a strong effort on the ground. It could have / should have been better than that. It's hard to say, oh, my God, he only carried the ball 13 times. The reason was they lost by 26 points. So at least he showed up and did his thing. We were very high on him at fantasyguru.com this week. I think after your move to the Thursday game, I think he was running back 12 or 13, something like that this week. He got almost 100 yards from scrimmage and got in the end zone. So he paid off, which is really good for an offense that didn't do anything, failed to throw for 200 yards, and had 10 points. Now, on the other side of things, K.Allen, Caleb Williams is getting better. And he's getting better on a weekly basis. He threw for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks yesterday, 20 for 29. There were still a couple of plays where he, get rid of the ball, Caleb. Okay, it's not college. Don't run around for 5 minutes in the backfield. I was thinking they were joking around with Brock Purdy was running around yesterday, and they asked Tom Brady, who was covering the game, for those of you that didn't see it, because Brock Purdy ran around for 8 seconds or something before he threw the ball. And the other announcer said to Tom, he said, Tom, what's the longest you ever held the ball in the pocket on a play? And Tom Brady goes 2.47 seconds. It was, of course, a joke, but the point was, get the ball, get it out. Caleb Williams still does the old dipsy-do spinorama. They got to get rid of that part of his game. But overall, he got 300 yards, didn't throw an interception. He ran for 30-plus yards. But the problem is there's very little rapport that he's showing on a consistent week-to-week basis with his receivers, especially K.Allen, which is surprising. Because, you've got K.Allen who maybe goes to the Hall of Fame. He's on down the edge there, right? Averaging 6 catches a game basically for his entire career. 6 targets yesterday, 3 catches for 33 yards. He had the big 11-target game in week 1. Then he missed some time with the heel injury. Part of this is lack of time together. Part of this is an aging Allen. Part of this is the heel. Okay. But he's just not really a part of the offense, which is very surprising given who he is and his stature in the game. The Bears won the game. They're 3-2. Things are looking up, but they got to get K.Allen more involved. At this point in time, he's impossible to start with any level of confidence in the fantasy space. The game of the day was Baltimore and Cincinnati, 41-38. Baltimore defeated the Bengals. 4 touchdown passes, 348 yards for Lamar Jackson. On the other side, Joe Burrow went for 392 and 5. Bengals should have won the game in overtime. They didn't. They missed a kick. The Ravens didn't miss the kick because they've got Mr. Tucker. Granted, 24-yarder versus a 52-yarder, whatever it was that McPherson missed. But the Ravens moved to 9-1 under Lamar Jackson against the Bengals. 9-1. Pretty damn impressive. What did I want to talk about here? Well, 2 things. One, we have on one side of things, we have Zach Moss with an ankle injury. Now, Zach Moss still dominated. Let's pull it up here as we're talking. Zach Moss still dominated the backfield yesterday. You wouldn't know it based upon the snap counts and everything. The touch counts and all that. But if you look at the stuff in the stuff that we normally look at, which is volume, Moss played double the snaps of Brown, and he also ran 3 times as many routes as Brown. Now, again, you wouldn't have been able to tell because on the field, Brown touched the ball 12 times on the ground. Moss was only 9. Moss had 3 catches, so Brown had 3 catches. So Brown beat him in the touch count, but he played half as many snaps and ran a third as many routes as Zach Moss. Now, Zach Moss hurt his ankle late. If Moss misses time or is significantly injured, right, then Brown becomes a pretty much must start. Because then you have to look at Brown and say to yourself, Trayvon Williams, I think, is the backup there to those two. Brown probably gets 18 touches a week. And as we have seen with Brown, he's been very explosive. So in the game of, hey, which backup running back to take, if Chase Brown is on the waiver wire, add him. He probably isn't on the waiver wire because, again, he scored a couple touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. He wasn't getting 6 touches. He was getting 12. But just do yourself a favor and make sure he's not there because he could explode in the coming weeks if Zach Moss is going to miss time with the ankle injury. On the other side of things, this is, and, I was on SiriusXM last night, and James Coe brought this up on the broadcast. Charlie Kolar is a thing, and that's a real problem here. Charlie Kolar had a carry yesterday by the Ravens. And he and I had this discussion, James and I, last night, trying to figure this out. Why the Ravens are featuring Kolar is bizarre. He had a carry last night. He only played 21 snaps, but on the 21 snaps he played, he ran 6 routes. Well, Ray, they're not scheming him. He ran 6 routes in the game. Yeah, but he ran 6 routes and had 4 targets. They ran plays for him. They gave him a carry. Now, why does this matter? He's not a thing. He doesn't start. It's no big deal for Charlie Kolar. He's just getting in the way of the other guys. Isaiah Likely scored twice, so it was a huge hit in the fantasy space. But he had 3 targets and 3 catches for like 19 yards, 16 yards. What was it? It was 13 yards. 3 catches for 13 yards. Whoopie-doo. He got in the end zone twice, one of them on a broken play where, Lamar Jackson just tossed it up and he made a nice catch. So, okay. So the leader for the Ravens at the tight end position yesterday in targets was Andrews with 5. In catches with Andrews, 4. In yardage was Andrews with 55. Okay. Who led the group in touchdowns? Likely. Who was second in the group in touchdowns? Kolar. Who had the carry on the ground? Kolar. Who led the group in routes run? Likely. I don't understand why Mark Andrews is in a 3-way split now at the tight end position. So here's what we've got at the end of the day. We've got, again, a 4-catch, 55-yard effort from Mark Andrews. That works. 9 points a week right now at the tight end position we will all take on a consistent basis if we can get that. I don't know. With the team scheming to get Kolar involved and not scheming to get Andrews involved, you got to think they believe that Andrews physically just can't do it at this point in time. And that's a real concern. I'd like to be more excited about the effort from Andrews, but it's very difficult to be there. It just is. Buffalo lost to Houston 20-23. This game, boy, did we see how important Tommy Callahan is to the Bills offense in this one. And I'm sure Jeff Mans will talk more about this on the Elite Sports Show. That is on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Monday through Friday at 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm on with Jeff on Wednesdays there. The offense for the Bills is in trouble right now. James Cook ran for 82 yards on the ground, had a touchdown. He looked good. He caught a couple of passes. He had 99 yards from scrimmage. But the receiving core is motley, and no one is elevating their play, even with Josh Allen throwing him the football. And you look at this group. Keon Coleman, literally, if you missed the game, Josh Allen threw a ball to Keon Coleman that hit him in the back of the head. It was like that video on SNL when Peyton Manning hits that kid and knocks him over. That's what happened yesterday to Keon Coleman. A ball hit him directly in the middle of the head. Now, I don't know what you're doing, dude. Okay, maybe it wasn't – maybe obviously the play wasn't called for Keon Coleman, or it was and he just missed the play call. But, dude, he got hit in the back of the head with a throw. He caught 1 of 5 targets. Luckily, it was a touchdown, 49-yarder where he went down the sideline. But he caught 1 of 5 targets. He's not really an established part of this offense as a rookie. Mac Hollins caught 2 of 6 passes. Hollins could have had a big gainer, a 50-yarder, maybe even gotten in the end zone. The pass kind of drifted just a little bit, and he kind of took a circuitous route. he's a journeyman though, so he shouldn't be a huge part of your offense anyway. Curtis Samuel, who they added to take work in the Deebo Samuel role, I would think, because that's the role that Samuel has filled, in the backfield, out wide. He's had that foot issue, and maybe it's still bothering him because he had one catch yesterday for no yards. He had one carry for -1 yard. Like, he's not part of the offense. He's just not. Marcus Valdez-Scantling can't be part of the offense. He does one thing. He runs post routes. So there's no one at the wide receiver core other than Shakir who's stepping up on a consistent basis. Dalton Kincaid has been a massive failure. Massive failure. Another 2-catch, 34-yard effort for him. And the fact is that the Bills are so wonky passing right now that they may have to just go out there and run the ball 35 times. It just might be what they have to do. I mean, Allen was 9 for 30 yesterday. So they lost the game, and that offense is not in a good spot right now. It's just not. Doesn't mean you bench Josh Allen. Let me be clear about that. But the offense is in a bad spot, and they need to go back to the drawing board and figure things out because they're 3-2, and that was a rough game yesterday. Not to mention, if you missed it, their fourth quarter play calling when they were at the 5-yard line or whatever the hell it was, and they threw 3 passes. And Allen is spinning around in the end zone and chucking deep passes. They only had the ball for 15 seconds or whatever it was, had to punt it back to Texans. Texans went down, and the Texans, got a few yards and kicked the field goal to win the game. What was that play calling? So I don't know. The Bills they're not in disarray, but oof, that was awful yesterday. Just awful. Tank Dell. Continue to get questions every week about Tank Dell. We continue to answer questions every week about Tank Dell. I think we as a group over at fantasyguru.com, and certainly the rankings over at fantasyguru.com, we're lower on Tank Dell than anyone out there. Jeff Mans was very vociferous in the point of view that Tank Dell was being widely overdrafted. I was right there with him saying the same thing, widely overdrafted. And, another 4-catch, 48-yard effort, 38-yard effort yesterday. And this is all played out exactly as we said it would, which is counter to what everyone else was doing and saying, because his ADP was 28th at wide receiver, something crazy. The third wide receiver on the team. He's 28th ADP at this position. Maybe that changes now. So maybe if you didn't listen to our advice at FG and you did go too deep into Tank Dell, maybe you'll get a payoff here, because Nico Collins, who's had a hamstring injury this year, tweaked it again yesterday. He was barely on the field. I think he played 9 snaps. He caught 2 passes for 78 yards and a touchdown, so he didn't kill you in the fantasy space by any means, because he got in the end zone on that 67-yarder. But it's unclear whether he'll play the next game now. They didn't game plan for it to go the way it went yesterday, but he did, again, Collins play just a handful of snaps, and there was only 4 targets to Tank Dell. Now, you might say to yourself, well, what about C.J. Stroud against the Bills? What did he do? He threw the ball 38 times. If you're throwing the ball 38 times and your number 2 wide receiver is getting 4 targets. So that's another offense that, Stroud went for 331 and 1. They won a football game. They're 4-1. Let's not panic here. But we'll have to watch closely what the injury reports say about Nico Collins and then reassess where we're at with Tank Dell. Tank Dell would become a viable starter if Nico Collins was out. But yesterday's effort, throws a little bit of cold water on that hope, because, again, Collins missed most of the game with his injury. Indiana and Jacksonville. Jacksonville wins 37-34. Let's talk about a couple of the big storylines here. Are the Colts, who are 2-3, are the Colts trying to win football games, or do they want to build for the future? That's really the question they have to ask, because through 2 games now, with Joe Flacco under center, the offense has looked better than it has looked with Anthony Richardson basically at any point in his career. And when an immobile 39-year-old quarterback can make your offense work, and you're a strapping 22-year-old, 6'5", 250-pound Adonis, and you can't. So do the Colts want to win games? Because if they want to win games, Joe Flacco needs to be their quarterback right now. That's just a fact. Or do they want to plan for the future and grow their franchise player? I'm assuming they're going to go back to Richardson. Everything makes sense that they'll go back to Richardson. Problem in the fantasy space is that, Antonio Pierce had a huge game early in the year with Richardson, right? Those deep bombs. He did it with Flacco yesterday. 3 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Downs, who will not see 12 targets or catch 9 passes with Anthony Richardson under center, did that yesterday. He went 9 catches for 69 yards. Michael Pittman, oddly, wasn't heavily involved yesterday. He had 5 catches for 37 yards, did get into the end zone, so his fantasy day was fine. But odd that he only had 5 catches on his 8 targets. You would think that he and Flacco would really have had a connection. It was Josh Downs. Bottom line is, though, that I would anticipate Richardson being back under center as early as this week. That's kind of what we're thinking. Don't go chasing Pierce, because Pierce, again, even yesterday only had 3 targets. Don't go chasing Josh Downs. Not saying you can't add him if he's on the waiver wire. You can do that. But don't chase him. Don't put big bids in. Don't spend high-level dollar. Again, he's not catching 9 passes or seeing 12 targets with Anthony Richardson under center. Not happening. Okay. Michael Pittman will hope that Joe Flacco stays under center, or he's likely to continue to be uneven as a performer the rest of the way. On the other side of things, we got an issue, as they say. Travis Etienne is getting harder and harder to A, start, and B, support fully. Now, to this point in time, Tank Bigsby has quote-unquote looked better because he's had a couple of big splash plays that Etienne hasn't had. But Etienne has consistently out-snapped him, out-route ran him, out-touched him, to this point in time. Yesterday, that changed. Yesterday, Tank Bigsby, 23 snaps, Travis Etienne, 22 snaps. Yesterday, Bigsby only ran 8 routes to 15 for Etienne, so Etienne still was used much more heavily as a pass catcher. He had 7 balls thrown his way. I think only 1 pass was thrown to Bigsby. So it's very clear that, when you talk about the backfield, we're still looking at a scenario where Etienne is the third down, the 2-minute drill, the third down kind of guy. But when you look at the short yardage stuff, it was split. Each guy got a goal line carry. Bigsby had 3 short yardage snaps. Etienne had 2. It's getting tight. And when you look at the production on the field, Etienne 6 carries for 17 yards and Bigsby 13 for 101 and 2 touchdowns. Now, one of the runs was 65 yards, so that's a lot of the difference between these two guys. But it's getting tougher to say that Bigsby doesn't look better as a ball carrier. Again, Etienne still had 6 catches for 43 yards, and he figures to at least hold on to the third down role. I'm not saying he's giving up the first and second down role, but if yesterday's any indication, we might be in a full-on timeshare. And I think the next game for the Jaguars is extremely important because as of now, Bigsby's up, Etienne's down, and as great as and excited as we're getting about Bigsby because he went for the 100 yards and the 2 touchdowns yesterday, he can't go for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns if he's getting 13 touches. That's not going to happen. The Jaguars aren't going to score 37 points weekly. That's not enough volume to consistently produce. If Etienne's the guy, anytime they fall behind or in third down rolls, 2-minute drill, he's that guy for this team. Jaguars don't always figure to be in the lead of a football game. So Bigsby, if he's available, is going to be extremely costly. You have to judge if it's worth it or not. Because Bigsby, in a best case scenario, he takes over the backfield and he becomes a Travis Etienne clone. In a likely scenario, he's in a 50-50, 55-45, 60-40 timeshare with Etienne, and as such can never pull away. As such, he's a flex option and not a guy that you rock solid got to get in your lineup every week. So we'll see if the team makes any proclamations. I doubt they do. Remember, again, yesterday was just one game. Until yesterday, it had been Etienne each week. So I would proceed with caution if Bigsby is available on your waiver wire. Be cautious with the amount of money that you spend there. Next game up is Miami and New England. This was a football game. 15-10, the Dolphins emerged victorious over the Patriots. The Patriots could have won this game late. Jalen Polk had his foot hit the end line on what would have been a game-winning touchdown catch with seconds left. But they reviewed it and determined his foot was out of bounds. So in the end, the Patriots threw for 160 yards. There's rumblings. Some of the beat writers, I think it was Mike Reese, who's covered the Patriots for years, said if you read between the lines, wouldn't be astounded if Drake May takes over for Jacoby Brissett in the next game. Nothing has been announced. But again, Mike Reese, probably the number 1 beat writer for the team, says, tea leaves. They need to do something. Now, the problem is, even if they go to Drake May, is the offense is very stagnant and the offensive line is not good. The idea being that Drake May is athletic and young enough that he can move around and do things that Brissett just can't. So even when the pocket breaks down, May can do something. We'll see when that happens. It will happen at some point. We'll see if it's their next game for the Patriots or not. But I highlighted Jalen Polk, even though you can't see it because I didn't get it up this morning. I highlighted Jalen Polk not because he, would be someone everyone would be talking about if he had the game-winning touchdown, and he had 1 catch for 13 yards. So this is not, Ray, why would you even want to talk about this guy? Well, let's look at the snap counts here for the Patriots yesterday. They played 60 snaps on offense yesterday. How many snaps do you think that Demario Douglas played? 40. So he played 2/3 of the snaps. That seems okay. Jason Boot, or Keyshawn Boot, 40. Okay, same. Kendrick Bourne in his first game back from injury played 16. They'll get him up. He'll obviously see that snap count grow a little bit. But what about Jalen Polk, who again could have had a game-winning touchdown, missed it by about that much? Could have had a game-winning touchdown. How many snaps did Jalen Polk play? Remember, Douglas and Boot played 40. 35? 41? What are you thinking? Jalen Polk played 60. 6-0. He played every snap. He was the only position player besides Travis Henry who played more than 40 snaps. He played 60. He played every single snap. That's something. So a guy that was turned too late for a potential game-winning score, a guy who played every single snap. When this team, and I'm in one league where I made a move prior to the game yesterday, where I added Jalen Polk. Is it the user league? Let me see real quick. I can't remember what league it was. I think it might have been the user league, the Elite Mafia Champions League. Is that the one? Yeah, the Elite Mafia Champions League, which I'm going to fall to 2 and 3. In the words of Jeff Mann's, right on pace to win a championship. In the Elite Mafia Championship League, I added Jalen Polk on Saturday. Then we see this effort that we saw, and it's really kind of exciting because he played every snap. He was utilized in the end zone, got that end zone target. Drake may switch over. For those of you in deeper leagues, for those of you trying to get ahead, there's a chance that Jalen Polk becomes a thing when the shift to Drake May happens. And when I say a thing, I'm talking hopefully 10 points a week. I'm not talking about a thing. He's not turning into T. Higgins, but a thing. Maybe someone that we can utilize down the stretch, just something to keep in mind. Okay, Cleveland and Washington. Washington smoked them 34-13. The Commanders go to 4-1. The Browns go to 1-4. The Browns season is basically almost over. I think I heard something yesterday somewhere. The teams that are 1-4 the last 20 years have made the playoffs like 6% of the time. Like it's almost impossible. And this is the question everyone's asking, and we'll pose it here on the show. Do they make a switch, the Browns, to Jameis Winston? The team has already come out and said after the game yesterday that Deshaun Watson is still their quarterback, so don't ask. Okay. But Deshaun Watson is not getting it done. Another terrible game yesterday, 125 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions at least. But he lost a fumble. The offense isn't working. It's not producing. He's not doing anything. He can't even throw for 200 yards on a weekly basis. And remember, the same thing was happening last year. Joe Flacco came in, and what happened? Joe Flacco was throwing for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns down the stretch every game. Deshaun Watson can't even throw for 200 yards. I mean, I know the offensive line, and this has been a problem. Their offensive line, which was one of the strengths of this organization for the last couple of years, is all kinds of beat up physically. Guys are out of the lineup. Guys are playing through injuries. So there are reasons that Deshaun Watson's constantly under duress, and it's the offensive line not being able to do their job effectively. You look at the team; they didn't have anyone run for 50 yards yesterday. Like they're just not, Though to be fair, Foreman and Ford had 18 carries for 91 yards, so they were very effective. They're not able to sustain drives. They're not able to do anything through the air. They did get back David Njoku, did the Browns yesterday, and he caught a pass early in the game for 14 yards, and that was it. So. Again, I think from a fantasy perspective, there's all kinds of rumors too, by the way, that Amari Cooper could be traded. Cooper was 4 catches for 60 yards on 10 targets yesterday. If Cooper gets traded, then this offense is in even more danger. And it's just a problem. Straight up, it's a problem. And I think it'd be better with Jameis Winston. Who would have thought you'd say that? But, Deshaun Watson's making $1 gazillion, and the coaching staff is saying we're staying with him. So they're staying with him for now, and so we're going to have to live with it. But on each week that goes by, it gets more and more difficult to, start anybody. Again, Ford was perfectly fine yesterday. 9 carries for 47 yards. We'll take that. 3 catches for 2 yards? That doesn't work. Amari Cooper, he's catching, 50% of his targets? That doesn't work. David Njoku, it was his first game back from an ankle injury, but 1 catch on 3 targets? The offense just is not working. Now, on the other side of things, the offense is really working with the Commanders. Daniels threw for 238 and 1 yesterday. He ran for 80-plus yards. Austin Eckler ran for 67 yards on 6 carries. He caught a couple of passes for 30 yards. He did a really good job out of the backfield. Brian Robinson wasn't needed. He had a knee issue, so he wasn't needed in this game. So he had 7 carries for 18 yards. And No, don't worry. He had 2 touchdowns. So everything was fine with Brian Robinson. The interesting thing here is Mr. McNichols. Now, before we get really excited about Jeremy McNichols, let's understand the following. One, again, Brian Robinson didn't play much in the second half because they were whitewashing the Browns. 2, Austin Eckler led the backfield in snaps. He played 32. Robinson played 22. McNichols only played 15 snaps. 3, Eckler ran 17 routes. Robinson ran 5 routes. McNichols only ran 4 routes. So McNichols was last on the totem pole in terms of snaps. He was last on the totem pole in terms of routes. He was only utilized in the second half of the game because it was a blowout. So if you played him, which was a mistake, because both Eckler and Robinson were healthy, if you played him, you got 7 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown. So bully, good for you. It worked. Don't do it again. Do not do it again. Jeremy McNichols is fool's gold unless Eckler or Robinson is unavailable that day. So keep that in mind moving forward. The Raiders and the Broncos. Broncos won 34-18. Really surprising here. I just realized I didn't do something. Huh? Did I? No, I didn't. I'll have to go back to that in a second. This is what happens when I don't have my sheet up for all of you to see. Again, I'll have that back tomorrow. For those of you for the first time, we usually have a cool little graphic right here that says what we're talking about. So I apologize today if you missed it at the start of the show. I'm on a new computer, which, by the way, I will say this too about the new computer thing. Though I couldn't find the file quickly here, pretty damn smooth. Like I was very. I'm a PC guy just because I've always been a PC guy. I'm not a Microsoft guy because but I will say the OneDrive and everything, it made it smooth. I clicked a couple things, entered a couple passwords, and it was pretty good. And Google Chrome too, by the way, I highly recommend because that was a snap too. So I don't think the transfer changeover could have gone much better than it did. So anyway, except for being able to find the file when I need it real quickly. The Broncos defeated the Raiders 34-18 here, and Javonte Williams is the story that I want to talk about. Bo Nix, by the way, 3 touchdowns, 2 passing, 1 rushing. Again, the Broncos put 34 points, looked pretty solid against the Raiders team. That's all kinds of questions around it. We'll talk about that in a sec. But Javonte Williams caught 5 balls for 50 yards to lead the team in targets, in receptions, and yardage. I think he caught all the passes in the first half. Okay, but 5 for 50 there. He also led the team in carries and rushing yards. Now, he didn't get into the end zone, but he ran 13 times for 61 yards, 5 catches for 50 yards. That's in a PPR setup, 16 points. Pretty good. In a non-PPR setup, it's 11 points. Still pretty good. That's pretty good for not getting in the end zone. So that was a very solid day for Javonte Williams. Jalen McLaughlin took a back seat, as he should, to Williams. With Beatty down with an injury, there wasn't a third running back yesterday that I would joke about all the time. Sean Payton loves 3 running backs. Really, were only 2 running backs yesterday. So that's really nice to see. If we can get things consolidated on 2 running backs, we're going to get excited about this offense because, we're seeing Bo Nix improve a little bit on a weekly basis. We're seeing more work given to the running backs. Again, 6 targets to Javonte Williams. He loves seeing that. If Javonte Williams is getting 18 touches a week, he's going to be close to 100 scrimmage yards. He'll get in the end zone some. Okay. So we're moving in a much better direction there. And I think Javonte Williams, what do we have? On Sunday, I think he was running back 20 in our rankings, something like that. Didn't get in the end zone for that huge payoff, but the rest of the game certainly was where we anticipated and hoped it would be. Now, on the other side of things, we're still waiting on Davante Adams. When's he going to get traded? Who's he going to get traded to? We don't know. We have Gardner Minshew out there who, threw a pick 6 to Surtain that went 100 yards and the whole thing, and basically was removed for the game, and Aiden O'Connell comes in late. And after the game, Alec Pierce was asked, Antonio Pierce, was asked, who's going to start for you the next game? And he says, we'll figure it out. So as of right now, we don't know if it's O'Connell or Minshew. I would say from a fantasy perspective, I don't know that it really matters. Both guys are, if you're in a super flex 2 QB league, it matters. But they're still going to be quarterback 24. They're not going to be quarterback 14. Doesn't matter. It's not like Aiden O'Donnell becomes the starting quarterback and all of a sudden he's ripping off 275 and 2 every week. Don't anticipate that happening. The Raiders are 2-3. The team is in flux. We've got the situation in the locker room with Davante Adams. And Minshew was 12 for 17 for 137 yards. Threw a couple of picks. Aiden O'Connell comes in, throws 20 passes, throws for 94 yards, throws a pick. His QB rating, by the way, was 43. He was good down the stretch last year, and I'm not saying that they won't make a change here. They very well could. There was that battle battle in camp for who would win out and be the starter and all that. And so this is one of those situations which hopefully are not in a 2 QB league. And I said this in the preseason a lot too, because after what happened last year with all the injuries, Superflex leagues, okay. I still think we should play 1 quarterback leagues, but Superflex leagues, okay. 2 quarterback leagues suck. Guys get hurt. Guys are on bye weeks. There's a situation like this. We don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. I can't tell you right now. If your waiver wire's open, go pick up Aiden O'Connell. You got a starter. I don't know. Can't tell you to drop Gardner Minshew. I don't know. So I hope you're not in a 2 quarterback league. Those are just really tough. And if you are in a 2 quarterback league, your league can't be any bigger than 10 teams. Just to put it out there. All right, going back to Miami, by the way, because that's the team that I realized I didn't say anything. I spent so much time talking about Jalen Polk. Just a quick word there. Tyreek Hill, 9 targets, 6 catches, 69 yards, was the top receiving option in this game, actually, for both teams, the Patriots and the Bills, and the Dolphins, excuse me. Start Tyreek Hill. I legitimately had probably 25 questions on Sunday mornings. If you send me a question to my Twitter account at @TheRayFlowers, I'm not going to see it. If you DM me at my Twitter account at @TheRayFlowers, not going to see it. Send me a normal question. You can send me any question Monday through Saturday at @TheRayFlowers. On Sundays for Stardom Sit-em advice, I will not see anything sent to my personal account. I run the Twitter account for SiriusXM. So from 10 o'clock Eastern, not 9 in the morning, not 7:15 in the morning, from 10 o'clock Eastern to 1 o'clock Eastern, the 3 hours before kickoff, 10 to 1 Eastern time, at SiriusXM Fantasy, I am answering the questions. Okay, so that's the only place on Sundays you're going to be able to get my advice. I won't be in Discord. I'm on SiriusXM answering their tweets at SiriusXM Fantasy from the hours of 10 to 1 Eastern time. Furthering, send your questions through DM. It says it right there on the tweet that we send out. DM your questions. Send the questions in DM if you want to get an answer. I had 25 questions on Sunday morning about people wanting to bench Tyreek Hill. Don't ever bench Tyreek Hill. Beyond the logic of why would you have ever bench a guy that you drafted in the first round, this is not Demario Douglas. Okay, this is not even Jalen Waddle, his own teammate, who Waddle, by the way, was fine. He had 4 catches for 46 yards. This is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, who even when Tua Tagovailoa is throwing the football, is burning people all over the field all the time. All Tyler Huntley has to do is get the ball in the hands of Tyreek Hill, as he did yesterday. 6 catches for 69 yards. That should be the new norm with Tyler Huntley. They finally figured out enough offensively, and Jeff Mans has been very vocal about this. This coaching staff has done a very poor job of designing an offense around Huntley the last couple of weeks. I know they've got injuries all over the place, and that's not easy. But, you can't run the same offense with Tyler Huntley you run with Tua Tagovailoa, and they should have known that. But don't ever bench Tyreek Hill. Stunning to me how many people were asking questions about whether they should start Tyreek Hill. All right, back to this game. The Niners fall to the Cardinals 24-23. The Niners blowing fourth quarter leads for twice in 5 games. So the Niners are 2-3. They should be 4-1. Without question, absolutely should be 4-1. And they've blown 2 games, one to the Rams and yesterday to the Cardinals. That's just terrible, just flat out terrible. The Niners didn't do anything at all in the second half of this game yesterday against Arizona. And, you've got Mason, 14 carries for 89 yards. He's fine. You've got Ayuk going 8 for 147, finally having a big game. You got Kittle going 8 for 64 and a touchdown. Okay. Everyone did their thing, but Deebo Samuel, 3 carries for 9 yards. Okay. That's fine. 1 catch for 11 yards. 3 targets. He had less targets than Juwan Jennings. So let's look at the snap counts here. Was Deebo limited physically because there was a problem? No. He played 7 fewer snaps than Ayuk, ran 5 fewer routes than Ayuk. He ran 16 more snaps than Jennings and ran 7 more routes than Jennings. It's on the field. They just didn't get him the ball. Vexing. So that's now 2 games with Deebo Samuel since his return from injury where he's been an afterthought in this offense. And that is something that can't happen. They win this football game if it's different, I believe. They'd win the football game if they made some nice plays too, which is a whole other issue. But there's enough blame to go around if you're a Niner fan. But the bottom line is Deebo Samuel's been very disappointing the last 2 weeks. I saw a write-up where it was, fire next week up Brandon Ayuk as a wide receiver 1 and hope that Deebo Samuel is a wide receiver 2. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Okay, it was a 1-week situation yesterday. It certainly looked that way yesterday. Let's not forget that Brandon Ayuk was catching 3 balls for 48 yards coming into yesterday, whatever the hell it was. Okay. We're still starting Deebo Samuel every week. It's disappointing. The last 2 weeks, it's really bad yesterday, but we're still starting Deebo Samuel moving forward. Don't send me questions on Sunday morning about starting Deebo Samuel. Green Bay and the Rams. Green Bay 24-19. Really interesting that if you missed Jordan Love's throw from the end zone, I loved it. I saw a tweet where it's when he went full Will Levis. Like he was falling down. He was going to have his safety, so he just flung the ball like this over his shoulder. It was a pick 6 from the 5-yard line. But Jordan Love and the Packers won the game 24-19. And there's a lot of storylines here, but let's start out with one we really need because of the position he plays, Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave was healthy enough to be active yesterday, but he didn't play. So, there still could be a little bit of a split here, but I think Tucker Kraft at this point is basically a tight end 1. And Ray scored 2 touchdowns at 88 yards yesterday. Duh. Yeah, that's true. He also saw 5 targets, only had 4 catches. And, one of the catches was for 66 yards. So you take away that one down the sideline, which was a great play and play call and the whole thing. It's 3 catches for 22 yards. So the Packers are one of those teams, and you know it as well as I do, that spread the ball around. It's this guy, it's that guy, it's this guy, it's that guy. All these guys are getting targets each week. So it makes it very difficult to feel super excited about any of them other than really Jaden Reed, because we saw it yesterday. Dontavian Wicks 2 catches on his 7 targets. Other than Jaden Reed, it's really difficult to know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis with the suspension of Romeo Doubs last week. Even though Kraft was a huge payoff, right? A huge win, 488-2. Again, 4 catches on 5 targets. You would have loved to see that number be higher. Now, the Packers only threw it 26 times because of the game flow yesterday, so there's that too. But bottom line is Tucker Kraft is, and it doesn't take much to say this, he's a top 10 tight end right now. And is there going to be consistency, I think, is the big question. Because as we have seen in the past, it's Kraft 1 week, it's Reed 1 week, it's Dobbs 1 week, it's Wicks 1 week. We'll have to see if they narrow their tree there of targets a little bit moving forward. On the other side, we're going to get potentially for the next game. The Rams have a bye this week coming up. But for week 7, it sounds like Cooper Kupp could be back, which would be huge. Cooper Kupp will return, and he'll be getting double-digit targets. Yesterday for the Rams, 45 passes for Stafford, 13 targets for Parkinson. He had 752 at the tight end spot. Atwell had 6 catches for 58 yards on 10 targets. But the leader in yardage on this team was Jordan Whittington, who saw 10 targets, caught 7 balls for 89 yards. I bet Jeff Mans is going to be really pleased and talk about this today on the Elite Sports Show because he had Jordan Whittington at the wide receiver spot this week as wide receiver 30. And I didn't look around, but I'm going to bet no one else had Jordan Whittington as wide receiver 30. And he had 10 targets, 7 catches for 89 yards. Now, the problem is if Kupp is back next game and then a couple games after that, Puka Nacua, Jordan Whittington, he's in the slot. He's running routes. He's catching 4 passes for 36 yards, right? But as we're seeing here, I think for the second half of the season, Whittington becomes a very intriguing stash because we have to ask ourselves, can we count on Kupp and or Nacua staying healthy for the rest of the season? Exactly, right? You're with me going, exactly. So Whittington, be cautious of overbidding. Especially because, again, they're on a bye this week, and then Kupp's supposed to be back. So don't bid 7 catches for 89 yards. Hopefully you already had him on your roster. If you didn't, be prudent about the bidding for the reasons that we discussed here. The Giants defeated the Seattle Seahawks 29-20. This game was basically down to a field goal attempt at the end. There was a block, a return of a kick for a touchdown, the whole thing. So it ended up being a 9-point game instead of a 3-point game. But Seattle losing this game at home to the Giants is really surprising. On the Giants side of things, Tyrone Tracy looked good. And Eric Gray fumbled the ball at the goal line. Like he was reaching for the goal line. The ball came out. It was picked up and returned 101 yards for a touchdown. But Gray was the goal line back and the third down back, which is a little disturbing for Tyrone Tracy, a little bit. At the same time, Tracy was the hammer, and he had 18 carries for 129 yards. He looked really good. He caught a 1-yard pass. But he looked better than Devin Singletary did. And Tracy, another one of these guys I get questions about every week. Tracy, as we saw yesterday, is eminently usable if Singletary is out. He's got the groin issue. He's not expected to miss extended period of time, so don't get crazy with adding Tracy on the waiver wire. If you had Singletary, you should have had Tracy already. Say it with me. Handcuff your running backs. If I go into Discord this morning and I'm going to get 15 questions about adding Tyrone Tracy, remember Tracy is only on the field if Singletary's out. He's not taking over the backfield. But this is what can happen when given an opportunity. And he produced and performed very well yesterday for the Giants. On the other side of things, Geno Smith threw 40 passes, 284 yards, a touchdown and a pick. A touchdown and no picks, excuse me. They ran the ball 11 times all game. If you remove Geno Smith, they ran the ball 7 times. 40 passes and 7 rushes from your backfield. Now, the Giants had a drive in the first quarter. I think it was 15 or 16 plays. Like, it was the whole first quarter. And I know Jeff Mans wrote about that in his review, and Armando Marsal's look back at week 5 that was just posted this morning. But they still threw the ball 40 times. And, Lockett got his 4 catches for 75, and Jigba had 4 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker, who had 5 carries, caught 7 balls for 57 yards, a huge PPR effort for him. But there's DK Metcalf. 7 targets, okay. 4 catches for 55 yards, okay. It's a one-off, all that kind of stuff. Tyler Lockett is, I was going to say he's this tall for those of you looking. He's not even, I don't know if he's that tall. Like, legitimately, he might be. I'm 6'4". I don't even know if he comes up to there on me. JSN's the same thing. JSN and Lockett, what do they average? 5'10", 190 pounds. Not saying they can't be productive players. Tyler Lockett, I said this last night. Tyler Lockett's the second best receiver in Seahawks history. Steve Largen's the only one ahead of him, right? JSN is an emerging player that we're really excited about in the fantasy space. But DK Metcalf is this tall. DK Metcalf is that tall and probably 8 inches wider than me and weighs 50 pounds more than I do, and it's all muscle. DK Metcalf is one of the fastest, strongest, best receivers in the game of football. You cannot lose a football game to the New York Jets at home getting him the ball that way. And we'll talk about that in a second here when we wrap things up with the Dallas game. When you have an alpha receiver, you've got to get them the football. Okay? If you're losing a football game, get your alpha guy the ball. And I don't want to hear the rolling coverage over. I don't hear. If that's the case, why are the other guys not blowing up? Why is Lockett catching 4 passes, and why does JSN have 4 catches for 31 yards? If they're bracketing Metcalf all game, where is it? It's Kenneth Walker out of the backfield? That's not the answer. Come on. You got to get the ball to your guys. Losing a home game to the Giants, if you're Seattle, especially with the Niners losing, like, Seattle could have started to take over this division. Boom. Get the ball to Metcalf. That was a smash spot that Jeff Mans talked about all week. It was the right decision to plan. It didn't turn out the way we expected. I have Metcalf on all my teams, so you're not the only one out there who's disappointed. That usage has got to change. You've got to get the ball more to him. If you throw the ball 40 times, he needs to see 10 targets. Period. We need that to change with Seattle. Finally, on Sunday Night Football, that took forever to get started because of weather delay. Steelers lost this game 17-20 to the Cowboys. Prescott threw for 350 and 2. It wasn't all roses for Prescott, though. He lost a fumble. He threw 2 interceptions. He was a very sloppy play. Rico Dowdle took over the backfield last night, 20 carries for 87 yards. Jalen Tolbert really stepped up in the absence of Brandon Cooks, who's now on the injured list with the knee issue, 7 for 87 and a score. So he's a hot waiver wire pickup if he's still available. But CeeDee Lamb, here we go again. The quarterback throws the ball 42 times. They won the game, okay. But the quarterback threw the ball 42 times. CeeDee Lamb got 9 targets. I just said it. If you're throwing the ball 40 times and you've got an alpha receiver, CeeDee Lamb, he needs double-digit targets. Period. 5 catches for 62 yards. Like, the Cowboys are 3-2 and they won a game on the road against the Steelers, a hard-fought game, but like, CeeDee Lamb is another one. Like, he was, and it's not because he was the number 1 or 2 draft pick. It's not that. It's that, why is he catching 5 passes for 60 yards every week? Like, down the stretch last year, he was catching 9 balls for 120 yards every game. He was scoring a touchdown every game. Boom, 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 for the whole second half of the season last year. And we get to this year, and it's 5 or 6 catches for 70 yards. Defense has just figured out how to cover him. Well, it's the same. Come on. So it's, 9 targets, 6 catches. You can't be pissed at that because that's still, but he threw 42 passes, did the Cowboys. Like, so it's another team that I just kind of confused as to why we're not getting our best player more heavily involved. I just don't really understand that. On the other side of thing, someone sent me a note and Justin Fields. I watch him play and I just don't understand. Steelers fell to 3-2. They only scored 17 points. There's multiple things going on with the Steelers. One, their team is beat up. They're without two of their top three running backs. Two, Arthur Smith and why am I drawing a blank on the head coach of the Steelers? Someone help me out in the chat room right there. Why am I drawing so? That's an idiot. Greatest coach, second greatest coach in their history. Head coach of Steelers, learn how to type, Ray Flowers. Mike Tomlin. Jeez, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith want to win games 20-17. Now, they lost the game last night 20-17, but they want to win games 20-17. They're going to open this offense up for Justin Fields. You know? And we got a bigger problem here now is that George Pickens caught 3 balls for 76 yards. Now, he had 7 targets to lead the way. But on 2 wideout sets last night, he only played like 10% of those snaps. When coming into the game, he's playing 80+% of them. Why in the world did the Steelers decide last night that when they were going 2 wide receiver sets, that George Pickens shouldn't be on the football field? And it's not like you look at his blocking measures and they're way worse and let's get Calvin Austin out there to block. No, it's not that. So the question really becomes like, what is going on here with Pickens? Is it attitude? Is it clubhouse stuff? I don't know what it is, but Pickens needs to be on the field all the time. He wasn't last night. 3 catches for 26 yards, terribly disappointing. And, while it's easy to blame Fields because he is the quarterback, it's the way the game is being called. It's the way the offense is being run. And with the way that Pickens was deployed last night, we have to have much higher level of concern with Pickens than we should. Pickens should be catching 5 for 75 every week, if not more. Just not happening in this offense right now. Ugh, really rough. Angelo said the following: I stayed up until 1 a.m. to watch the game. All future sports teams should be required to have a roof. It's so funny. Jeff Mans tweeted this out, and it's interesting, and I'll say this without trying to get into trouble, Angelo. Being a West Coast person, I mentioned this earlier in the show today. The game in London yesterday, I got up in the dark to watch the football game. Okay, so my days on Sundays, not that anyone cares, my days on Sunday start at 6 a.m. and they go to 8 at night or 9 at night whenever the game is over. So it's like all day for me, so it is what it is. But West Coast people, like East Coast people, are very strange. Like, I remember I've been on the East Coast, for some Sunday football at times for covering events and doing things. And it's such a weird experience because on the West Coast, games start at 10 in the morning, right? On the East Coast, game doesn't start till 1. You could sleep in, you could go to church, you could spend time with your family, you can do an egg hunt, you can go to lunch, going to catch a football game at 1 o'clock. I can't even get breakfast. It's 10 o'clock here. So it's just different. So the game, the delay for the game, I mean, it is what it is. They would have never delayed a game like that 5 years ago. They do now. I know it's late on the East Coast, for people for that, but West Coast has got it in the morning. So it's why when I do the cash game breakdown for baseball, some nights I'm working at midnight because East Coast games start at 12 o'clock, which means it starts at 9 o'clock West Coast time, which means the article's got to be posted at 7 o'clock West Coast time, which means I got to start writing that thing at 2 in the morning, actually at midnight. So yeah, but it was weird. I don't disagree with the roof thing. I mean, we were talking about this too, Angelo, out here. It was 101 degrees in my brother's driveway, which is 4 miles from here, on Saturday. And in my driveway that was Sunday. Yesterday was 101 degrees. On Saturday, it was 97 in my driveway. It's October, and it's 97 degrees in the Bay Area. Never happens. There were videos yesterday of people at the Niners game who weren't even sitting in their seats. They were under the concourse watching the game on the Jumbotron in the concourse because it was too damn hot. Weather is changing. It would be nice if all the new places have a roof. Totally agree with you there. Doug M says, yay, y'all. Burrow doubles to the moon, baby. Yeah, he did. A hell of a game for Burrows yesterday. Late pick. Took a little luster off it. We don't care in the fantasy space. He threw 5 touchdown passes. Angelo, who we w're just talking about, Donald put you over the top this week. I had Adam when Mixon went down. Congratulations. I added Akers. Well, I've had Akers because I have Mixon. Got them both. Akers got in the end zone, didn't do anything. Dario Gabwale was the guy, actually, as the Texans continue to do weird things with their backfield. But, yeah, Dowdle finally took over the backfield. Clearly, he's the preferred option now with Ezekiel Elliott regressing. Elliott just doesn't have any juice left anymore. Rugby 17. Everyone think Mahomes can outscore Darnold and Dalton tonight? Of course he will, Rugby. You bench Mahomes for Kyler. Well, it looks like whether it works out or not, I would say this, Angelo. Whether it works out or not, you got a payoff, right? You got a 25-point effort from your quarterback. Mahomes gets you 26 tonight. You lose. Still got 24 from Kyler. As I've said all along, there is no reason to have 2 top 10 quarterbacks. If you're in a 1-quarterback league, you should trade somebody, which means you should trade Kyler Murray because you won't get anything for Patrick Mahomes. That's how I would play it. Henry says, good evening, Ray, listening from overseas. Another strange fantasy week. Henry, overseas. Thank you for that. I wonder what time overseas the game's good because you can get 12-hour time. It could be yesterday when you're watching today's games, et cetera, et cetera. They're all for strange fantasy weeks, aren't they, at this point, Henry? NFL has been really weird this year. You're not wrong to make that comment. David P. says, when Cup comes back, how much will that hurt Jordan Whittington? We talked about that, David. Hopefully you were able to see the discussion we had when we brought up Whittington about 25 minutes after you asked your question. Greg M. Steelers wide receivers are awful. The whole offense is kind of bleh. And again, this is, if Justin Fields had stayed in Chicago with the receiving weapons they have, they went to Chicago. Yeah. Henry says, would you start Jane Daniels over Allen for the next few weeks? I am still looking at week 6. We still have a game tonight. I haven't come close to looking at the schedule or anything like that moving forward. It's very difficult to say what we're going to do moving forward because as we've seen, look at the Tua Tagovailoa situation with the Dolphins. We would have all said, oh, yeah, great. Let's start Tua. Everything's good. How's that gone? One guy can go down in the offense. You lose your center. You lose your quarterback. You lose your top wideout. Everything changes. So I'm not at the point where I would say, yes, I'm looking at bye weeks. Washington's got their bye in week 14. When does Kansas City have their bye this week? So in week 6, you're starting them because Kansas City will be on a bye this week. Let's see here. Jim Greg jokes around. Drop all Bears, Browns players, dear God. Not quite that far, but yeah, I get the sentiment there. So sorry for the fact we didn't have the little cool thing here. Sorry you had to see the microphone. Hopefully the video quality and the sound was as good as ever. The same equipment for that as we've had previously. I think I got that locked in. I'll try to get the graphic locked in for tomorrow's show. And I'll try to have a better start to the show because that was messy. I apologize to everybody as I'm saying I'm on Sirius XM and all that kind of stuff. This show is Fantasy Sports Daily. It is Monday through Friday on the Elite Plus network. So check us out. I host Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman hosts Wednesdays. Tomorrow, Marno Marsal will come on the show. We'll get an early look at waiver wire. So he and I will do that. He'll join about a half an hour into the show tomorrow. And we'll continue to help pound this thing out to help everyone have success in fantasy football. Don't forget, you can still go to fantasyguru.com right now. I think we still have that slide right here. Let me see if I can get it pulled up real quickly. I think I can do it. Did I do it? I did it. We can still do that real quickly. 2-for-1 offer, I believe, is still in effect right now. I didn't check this morning, but I'm going to say it is. You can always head up support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. If there is a problem, send an email there. Right now we have a 2-for-1 special. I'm going to say, even if it's not official, if you send them a note, hey, Ray said this on the show this morning, don't make it happen. 2-for-1 special. Buy DFS football, get wagering football for free. Buy wagering football, get DFS football for free. 2-for-1. So buy either one of those, get the other one for free. And remember, as we talked about last week with Chris Rose, that will also include college football. So it'll get you either the wagering for college football or the DFS for college football. So get either package, wagering or DFS for football for the rest of the season, and we'll give you the other one for absolute free over at fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page, and you can have at it, have some fun. It's right up there. You can also click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. Find this show cataloged as well as the other shows on the network. And Angelo said you like the backdrop. Thank you, Angelo. It's the one we're using for my Ray's Ramblings piece on Fridays, where I have some fun with the numbers. Figured it'd be a good backdrop here as well. So thanks for joining me today. We'll get back on the saddle tomorrow on Tuesday. Again, Marno Marsal will join us. We're over at fantasyguru.com right now, reviewing everything that happened in week 5, starting to take that look ahead to week 6. Hit us up in Discord if you've got any questions. We'll be happy to answer those to help you out in week number 6. I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.